Before the motorway became a river of German engineering. Before the dealerships filled with Japanese reliability. Before the word hatchback became the language of every British household, there was a decade that defined what it truly meant to build a family car on these islands. The 1980s. A Britain of contradictions, recession and reinvention, strikes and survival, and through all of it, the family car sat on the driveway like an anchor, dependable, aspirational, and unmistakably British. The domestic industry was fighting harder than it ever had. Ford's Dagenham plants were running flat out. Austin Rover was attempting nothing short of a resurrection. Vauxhall was chasing relevance with every new model badge. And the British motorist, practical, occasionally optimistic, always opinionated, was choosing between them in record numbers. These were the machines that carried school runs through Sheffield, holiday luggage through the Lake District, and 3 generations of family life across the length of this country. If this channel is new to you, consider subscribing because history like this deserves a proper audience. Now, let us begin. Number 10. Talbot Horizon. Launched in 1978 and carrying well into the early 1980s, the Talbot Horizon arrived under the shadow of a brand in quiet collapse. Built from the bones of the Chrysler Europe project and assembled at Brighton-on-Dunsmore in Coventry, it represented the last serious attempt by the Talbot name to compete in the mainstream family sector. Front-wheel drive, a transversely mounted 1.3 or 1.5-litre engine, and McPherson strut suspension gave it a technically competent foundation, reasonable for its era. The interior was practical enough for a Midlands family seeking honest, affordable transport. It was never flashy, never aspirational, and it never pretended otherwise. What ultimately undermined the Horizon was not mechanical failure but corporate fatigue. PSA Peugeot Citroën absorbed the mark and quietly suffocated it. Production wound down by 1986. The Horizon is a footnote, but an honest one, in the story of British family motoring. Transitioning now to a car that fared only marginally better in the public's affections. Number 9. Austin Maestro. Introduced in 1983, the Austin Maestro was British Leyland's determined, if somewhat desperate, attempt to reclaim the family hatchback segment it had been hemorrhaging for years. Manufactured at Cowley in Oxford, it replaced the aging Allegro and arrived carrying the full weight of a struggling industry's hope. The engineering was genuinely improved over its predecessors, front-wheel drive, a 1.3 or 1.6-litre R-Series engine, and a claimed aerodynamic body that genuinely delivered reasonable fuel economy. An early version even featured a synthesized voice warning system, which managed to be simultaneously innovative and deeply irritating in equal measure. Fleet buyers and young families in towns like Swindon and Luton gave it cautious acceptance. However, build quality inconsistencies and a reputation inherited from the Leyland years proved difficult to escape. The Maestro sold in respectable numbers but never commanded genuine affection. A car that deserved better than its circumstances allowed. Number 8. Vauxhall Cavalier Mk2. The second-generation Cavalier, arriving in 1981, was Vauxhall's most coherent attempt yet at attacking the mid-range family saloon and hatchback market, and it arrived with a far sharper sense of purpose than its predecessor. Built at Ellesmere Port in Cheshire, this was a car designed with the company car driver squarely in mind. Front-wheel drive, strut suspension across both axles, and a range of 1.3 to 1.8-litre engines made it technically sound and, crucially, easy to live with over high annual mileage. The sales representative communities of Manchester, Birmingham, and Bristol took to it with notable enthusiasm. Fleet registrations drove enormous production volumes through the mid-decade years. It was competent rather than captivating. The German GM influence was evident in its solidity, though some felt it lacked any distinctly British character. Nevertheless, it moved the Vauxhall brand meaningfully upmarket and prepared the ground for what followed. Number 7. Rover 213 and 216. Launched in 1984, the Rover 200 series, specifically the 213 and 216 variants, marked a pivotal and somewhat uncomfortable moment in British automotive history. This was the first fruit of the celebrated, if controversial, collaboration between Austin Rover and Honda, and it wore its Japanese engineering heritage beneath a carefully constructed British exterior. Built at Longbridge, the 213 used a Honda-derived 1.3-litre engine whilst the 216 carried a 1.6-litre unit. Both featured Honda's proven suspension geometry beneath bodywork designed to appeal to aspirational British buyers who associated the Rover name with quality, leather, and a certain professional respectability. It worked. Doctors' surgeries, solicitors' car parks, and suburban driveways across the home counties welcomed the 200 series as proof that Rover could still produce something worth purchasing. The compromise at its engineering core was invisible to most buyers, and that invisibility was perhaps the cleverest achievement of all. Number 6. Ford Sierra. The Sierra arrived in 1982 wearing aerodynamic bodywork so radical that it polarized British buyers almost instantly. Replacing the enormously popular Cortina was an act of considerable commercial courage from Ford, and the Dagenham-managed project initially attracted more skepticism than sales. Rear-wheel drive underpinned the original range, unusual for a mainstream family car entering an era increasingly dominated by front-wheel drive rivals. A broad engine range from 1.3 to 2.0-litre units, including a refined OHC 1.6, gave fleet buyers genuine choice. The suspension, independent all-round, provided handling that earned genuine praise from the motoring press. Public resistance softened measurably by the mid-decade as the Sierra's qualities became apparent on British roads. It became a dominant fleet choice and, in XR4i form, touched something approaching excitement. The Sierra ultimately vindicated Ford's boldness, even if the Cortina's shadow took years to fully lift. If you remember these cars lining British driveways throughout the 80s, stay with us, the top 5 genuinely defined the decade. Number 5. Austin Montego. The Montego, launched in 1984 from Cowley, represented Austin Rover's most serious incursion into the competitive mid-range family saloon and estate market, a segment where Ford and Vauxhall had long considered the territory their own. Available in saloon and estate configurations, the Montego offered genuine practicality. The estate variant in particular earned strong approval from families requiring serious load-carrying capability, the kind of car that carried camping equipment to the Scottish Highlands and back without complaint. Engine options ranged from a 1.3 up to a 2.0-litre O-Series unit, with a turbocharged diesel variant added later that attracted considerable fleet interest during the fuel-conscious late 80s. Its downfall was familiar: perceived reliability concerns and a dealer network that struggled to project confidence. The Montego deserved considerably more than history ultimately awarded it. In estate form especially, it was a quietly accomplished British machine operating in deeply difficult commercial circumstances. Number 4. Vauxhall Astra Mk2. The second-generation Astra, introduced in 1984, was the car that genuinely announced Vauxhall's arrival as a serious challenger for family car supremacy in Britain. Where earlier Vauxhalls had felt like German products wearing British badges, the Mk2 Astra developed a distinct identity that resonated across the country. Built at Ellesmere Port, it offered front-wheel drive, independent strut suspension, and a range of 1.2 to 1.8-litre engines, including a responsive 1.6-OC unit that delivered genuine driving satisfaction in an era when economy remained a principal concern. The 3- and 5-door hatchback configurations addressed virtually every family requirement. Young professionals in Leeds, working families in Cardiff, and first-time buyers across the suburban south found in the Astra a car that felt genuinely modern. The GTE Performance variant extended its cultural reach considerably. Production figures across the Mk2's lifespan ran into hundreds of thousands, testament to a car that had found its moment. Number 3. Ford Escort Mk3 and Mk4. The front-wheel drive Escort, arriving in 1980, was a moment of genuine transformation for Ford in Britain. Abandoning the rear-wheel drive layout that had underpinned the beloved earlier generations was a decision that carried enormous risk, and it paid off with remarkable completeness. CVH engines in 1.1, 1.3, and 1.6-litre configurations delivered a broad range of accessible performance. The suspension, McPherson struts at the front, independent rear, provided a composed ride well suited to British road conditions. The Mk for refinement of 1986 extended the model's relevance deep into the decade's final years. The Escort in this era occupied nearly every stratum of British family life. It was the chosen transport of nurses, teachers, small business owners, and young couples purchasing their first home. In RS turbo form, it reached something approaching cultural mythology. No other family car in this decade appeared in quite so many British driveways with such quiet, unquestioned regularity. Number 2. Rover 800 Series. The Rover 800, launched in 1986 as the product of the deepening Honda collaboration, this time sharing its platform with the Honda legend, was the most ambitious statement of intent the British Leyland successor had produced in a generation. This was not merely a family car, it was a declaration that British engineering could compete at the executive level. A 2.0-litre Honda-derived engine in base specification and a Rover-developed 2.5-litre V6 at the range summit gave the 800 genuine breadth. The interior, leather, walnut veneer, deep carpet, was crafted at Cowley with a quality that genuinely challenged German rivals at comparable price points. Professional Britain responded enthusiastically. The 800 became the prestige family saloon choice for senior management across the country. Its mechanical vulnerabilities, particularly in the early years, prevented it from achieving the sustained reputation its ambition deserved. Nevertheless, as a statement of what British design could still achieve, the Rover 800 stands as something genuinely remarkable. Number 1. Ford Fiesta Mk2. There is, ultimately, only one candidate for this position. The second-generation Ford Fiesta, refined and expanded from 1983 onwards, was not simply the best British family car of the 1980s. It was the decade distilled into a single machine. Built at Dagenham and later Valencia, with the British operation central to its identity, the Fiesta Mk2 offered front-wheel drive, a range of 1.0 to 1.6-litre CVH engines, and dimensions precisely calibrated for the realities of British urban life: narrow streets, modest garages, constrained household budgets. The 1.1 Popular brought genuine motoring within reach of families for whom a new car had previously been unimaginable. From Glasgow tenements to Surrey commuter towns, the Fiesta appeared everywhere, and was trusted completely. The XR2 lent it a cultural electricity beyond pure utility. No other car touched as many British lives, at as many income levels, during those 10 defining years. The Fiesta was not merely a product. It was a national institution. The 1980s remade British motoring in ways that still resonate today. A decade that began with industrial uncertainty and ended with the Japanese and German challenge fully established, yet through all of it, British manufacturers produced machines of genuine ingenuity, warmth, and cultural resonance. The engineering shifted dramatically across those 10 years, from rear-wheel drive holdovers to sophisticated front-wheel drive platforms, from carburetors to fuel injection, from chrome to aerodynamics. The family car grew up, and Britain grew with it. If you have enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe to Britain Rewind. It supports everything we produce here. And we would genuinely like to know, which of these cars sat on your family's driveway in the 80s? Tell us in the comments below. Until next time, drive carefully, and remember your history.